Thank you.
So
Not yet. Please. I'll announce. Okay, guys. Here we have the panel of so many talented people who will discuss the mobile game marketing 2022 trends and overview. Please, Krystian, the stage is yours.
okay, hi, how's everybody doing? So welcome everybody to Hyper Games Conference panel discussion. Thank you all for participating. Today's topic is very vast, and it's like a good old classic, right? Like mobile game marketing in 2022. So I guess the topic is repeating itself every year, but still everybody is interested, and of course everybody wants to know better understand the trends and what to focus on this year, right? Marketing it's a big has a big meaning. It's a word that consists a lot of things, and sometimes it could be quite overwhelming, especially for less experienced developers. Today we're gonna have people from different parts of industry, like from MMP attribution platform. We got also from distribution game distribution platform and mobile game publishers. So it's a quite a good mix, which could give us a quite interesting insights to 2022 marketing trends. Okay, so gentlemen, let's introduce ourselves first, right? Let's start with Mike from GameBake.
Awesome, cheers. So I'm Michael Hudson. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of GameBake, and we are a full-service SDK-free distribution platform, helping developers, publishers globally to bring their games to brand new channels, Android stores, HTML5 channels, and the likes as well. So very much focused on, I think, a slightly different area to everybody else in terms of marketing, but a very important part of the industry nonetheless.
All right, thanks, Mike. All right, now Adam from Appsflyer.
Hi, it's great to be here. I'm Adam Smart. I'm the Director of Product for Gaming at Appsflyer. I've been in gaming for around 13 years on the product side, and now I've moved to the supplier side to sort of get a change of experience and really use the experience that I've got in order to look at how we can improve Appsflyer's gaming offerings, ideally through some of the product innovation that we have coming through. For those who don't know, Appsflyer are one of the largest mobile attribution platforms, which essentially means we show you what installs are driven from which ads you're running. We've also got a lot more products on our range, so feel free to hit me up at some point.
Thanks, Adam. I think everybody's pretty familiar with Appsflyer, to be
I hope
honest.
so.
All right, next one, Thomas from Appradar.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, my name is Thomas. I'm one of the founders as well as one of the managing directors of Appradar. I would consider myself as somebody who has been working in online marketing since ages. So already during my studies, I started working in the area. And round about 10 years ago, I started to specialize in the area of app marketing as well as in mobile game marketing, and founded the company of Appradar. Appradar is a tool where you can sign up, connect your game, and find out how visible it is within the app stores. And also it gives you tips on how to optimize it to get more organic downloads. So in the end of the day, we have been helping a lot of mobile games becoming more visible and also becoming more successful and getting more downloads.
All right, thanks, Thomas. Now let's go to Roman from Tenjin.
Hey, my name is Roman, based in Berlin, marketing director at Tenjin. Tenjin is a go-to place for ad-based games that want to see and want to do some marketing analytics.
All right, thanks, Roman. And then finally, let's go to CK from Kooapps, right?
Hi.
How is it pronounced?
Yeah, I pronounced it correctly. Yeah, my name is CK. I'm a co-founder, CEO at Kooapps. We're a hyper casual, hybrid casual gaming studio. We have more than 250 million downloads, and our largest title is Snake.io.
Very on topic. All right, that's great. And finally, let me introduce myself too as well. So I'm Krystian Strauss from OpenMediation. I'm the head of overseas business development. Our main product is an open source mediation platform, but this is not what we mainly do. OpenMediation is dedicated to help mobile game developers with publishing, either it's a self-publishing or cooperating with publishers. So we created our X-Timing program, which is like a free accelerator program for mobile game developers, helping them optimize the game, monetization strategy for marketing, and many, many more. We also host every year an Indie Clash Championship to support great mobile game ideas. And this year, we're going to also organize X-Timing Academy, which is a special educational and mentorship program that will help developers create successful games with assistance of word-known professionals from this industry. So therefore, this panel topic is especially close to my heart. And yeah, because we help hundreds of developers per year. So yeah, I see everybody has quite of experience in the marketing area. So okay, so let's start with our panel discussion. Of course, I prepared some questions, and I'll be asking mostly one question to one participant. But if you want to add something up, right, then feel free to do so. Okay, so the first question is very basic. What trends in marketing can you see in 2022? I think it's a pretty big question, so maybe everybody can answer and share their knowledge about. Let's start with CK.
Yeah, sure. We're spending a lot more on Apple search ads. We're seeing really good results, and so this channel has grown a lot for us, and we're spending a lot of time, learning about the channel with a lot of keywords. Custom product pages are really promising in Apple search ads, and so we're doing a lot of testing, a lot of investment in learning the channel and how to create custom creatives actually as well in Apple search ads, and that's also new, say this year over sort of last year and the years before. So.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I saw some data that was like the overall spending of overall spending is like search ads takes like almost like 20%. So it's like quite of interesting thing. Plus, you don't have to have, I guess, huge budget to do so, right? It's good for beginners, developer. And,
totally. Yeah, their AI is also really good. Where in some channels you have to spend like a really large upfront like learning budget. Like if you work with a lot of DSPs, that's the case. Maybe like 5 digits. But with Apple search ads, like you could start with really low budgets, and they've improved the product tremendous amount with custom pages and all that. So that's definitely something new.
Okay, Roman, the same question. What trends in marketing can you see in 2022?
I think the macro trend is ad spend distribution between platforms. So in our public report, we saw in the first time of the history of our reports, Android beat iOS, like it was Q3. Now it's like 50-50. So I felt like advertisers got like a bit scared of privacy first word, and then they figure out, okay, no, we can do something with it. And the CK example is a like perfect example of that, right? Because I'll add that for Apple search ads, they don't show this bit ugly ATT pop-up. They have their own pop-ups that they show in the App Store, which looks much better and it's much more user-friendly. So I kind of get it why, more people would use Apple search ads. I still think there should be some level of expertise because, like, historically, I found that it worked better for big brands, and for hyper casual, people went to like Facebook, or Google, like a more like first choice whenever people start in advertising. But now it's changing. People are using more channels, much more channels than they used to.
Yeah, true that. The channels, I can also personally relate to the channels we're using, and we're discovering different channels, different ways of acquiring users, and not the classical ones that it used to be before. True that. Thomas, how about you? What trends can you see in marketing in 2022?
Yeah, adding up on what has already been said, I think Apple Search Ads, giving the privacy changes, all of the stuff that happened last year, will be one of the rising, or is one of the rising channels. Let's put it like that. I think there, especially the combination of combining App Store optimization, so really optimizing your organic visibility and kind of boosting this with Apple Search Ads. It was always a good tactic, and it still is a good tactic, and it will be a good tactic in the future as well. So I think if you combine this very well, this is really where you can also get a competitive edge. Additional to that, what I would like to add as another channel is TikTok, which we are also seeing a lot of growth and momentum going on. Right at the moment, I would, if you look at the distribution of how much of the video market they have, it is still a small proportion. But given the fact that it's probably already the biggest social network, we will also see this rising up very much in the near future. So therefore, adding TikTok as one of the channels to this for the future or marketing trends in 2022.
Yeah, TikTok is booming, but maybe to follow on the question, like, is it the audience there a little bit different than, let's say, different platforms? For example, let's see, I have a good example when it comes to Facebook. Like when it comes to Facebook, all my family use it, right? From very young person to my mother to my grandma, all using Facebook. But TikTok, it's not gonna be like that. It's gonna be more like young people, young audience, right? Or am I wrong?
I would say it really depends on where, in which kind of country you look at it, because there have also been some bigger changes going on. I would say the US kind of TikTok user is kind of already also, if you look at the average age, like it's rising.
Yes.
I would see similar trends like with Facebook back then. For sure you can remember, when you signed up, none of your family was there, right? So it wasn't your mother or anybody else, yeah. But after time, they also went there, and I think we will be seeing very similar trends also on TikTok happening.
All right, thanks. And Adam, the same question. What trends can you see in marketing in 2022?
I guess one of the biggest that I'm seeing at the moment is people actually understanding or taking the time to understand their user base, so that they're able to sort of run a lot more contextual targeting on iOS now that you don't have user level data. It's it gives you a lot more benefit to be able to understand your target audience and the sorts of materials that they're looking at on the web, to really go after them specifically. Again, influencers is I think it's already a big channel, but it's coming in more and more, and people are understanding how to work with influencers more and more, whether it's actually paying for influencers to sell your app, or whether it's actually working with influencers to give them content to be able to create for free. They're doing it essentially because they want to grow their channel.
Yeah. True that. We also start using like influencers, micro influencers, and going like smaller and more precise, and actually it's working pretty well. Yeah,
absolutely.
And Mike, finally, the same question: what trends can you see in marketing in 2022?
Sure. I mean, from our perspective, we're seeing a lot of developers and publishers, I think, starting to understand, or trying to understand anyway, different channels for their games within the industry. They're not now, with a lot of the data issues and stuff that we've seen from Apple and with Google as well and stuff. They're starting to explore new channels, be that HTML5 channels, with the rise of instant gaming such as Snap, Facebook, and TikTok now coming out of the woodwork the last sort of few days. But also alternative Android stores, which have been around, and I think all of us know have been around for a long time. But it's only really now that they're starting to kind of pick up steam, and really kind of start to take a chunk out of, I think, the Google Play market share. And right now, it's definitely difficult, to not just get to these stores and market upon them like effectively. I guess that's why we exist in some to some extent, anyway. But we're really starting to see the interest from many different hyper casual developers in how they can extend their reach and try and take advantage of these channels out there to run user acquisition and kind of get to the heyday of really low CPIs once again. So that's how we're kind of seeing it. Distribution is becoming, I think, a bigger topic and a bigger talking point. And I think it's a really interesting part of the industry that's been neglected for quite a long time now, and starting to come into the limelight now.
All right, thank you, Mike. All right, next question to Thomas. Is there any marketing tactics that wasn't seen before or wasn't popular before, but it is now?
I would say just given the fact that it was released recently, the topic around custom product pages within Apple Search Ads and within the Apple ecosystem, within the App Store Connect ecosystem, let's put it like that, is, I think, the perfect answer to this question, because simply it wasn't there before Apple released it. I think it is still kind of, as somebody who we have been using it, I would say, quite intensively over the last couple of weeks as well with some of our clients. I would say it still feels a little bit like, kind of an alpha stage or maybe a beta stage of their own product in this regard. So it's not, like the smoothest experience yet. But also looking forward, I think that Apple sees a lot of potential in it. And I think they will also invest a lot of time and also kind of money to make it better and to make it more applicable and easier to use for a wider audience out there. So I think that this will be a topic that Apple will keep further pushing within the upcoming months and so on and so forth.
All right, great. Do you have any tips for developers for using this feature?
Yeah, I think in the end of the day, it comes down to structure, because you kind of have to understand, okay, I want to create different, landing pages for different parts of my target audience. So therefore, I think before you go there and set up the first campaigns, I think the first thing that you should do is try to identify who are actually different, target or parts of my target audience, and then try to come up with concepts of how can you distribute your game or your messages around your game better to those specific target audiences. So super high level, it is a difference if you know that, for example, young mothers are playing your game, or if male teenagers are playing your game. It is a completely different kind of approach. And the more you think about this already in the beginning and really think of, okay, what could be the most corresponding message to them? Yeah, what could be out of most interest for them to catch the interest of them? If you come from this approach and really think of a campaign structure first before you go to and create the pages, it will save you a lot of time and hassle.
Thanks. That's a good insight. Okay, next question. Maybe I think this is a question that everybody's waiting for, because it's like a booming thing, or right now it's going down. Anyway, regarding the NFT and blockchain games, is there any specific way to target your user or market your game? Maybe Adam? You know much about it, or should I change to somebody else?
It's actually something I've been diving into a lot recently, and we've had lots of clients coming to Appsflyer sort of asking, how can we work with you on this? How can we get visibility? One of the biggest areas that I've seen certainly is the lack of mobile. Like it's not generally on mobile. And that's because of the problems that go along with the problems that are associated with mobile, i.e. it being owned by Apple and Google, and their stance hasn't been sort of fully registered yet on how they're going to move with crypto. So in order to be able to advertise, it goes back to more traditional web-based advertising. But when you have, a lot of the browsers for Web3 gaming certainly are, like the likes of Brave and that kind of thing, which completely eliminate all forms of cookies, it becomes very, very difficult to do any form of targeted advertising for, to bring your clients in. So it's one that I think is, for me, it's certainly an evolving thing. It's something that there is, I haven't seen many answers to, other than people sort of generating these communities. And that seems to be one of the biggest ways at the moment of creating that group of users who come to you with a specific interest, and you're able to build that community out of, which also aids with retention and everything as well.
Okay, maybe following this topic, how about P2E games, so play to earn games? Like, is this something that we should pay attention to while doing marketing of these games? Michael?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is, all of the blockchain, P2E and stuff is, I think, very hyped at the moment. And, for me personally, I see it as something that isn't going to hit really mainstream for a good few years yet. It's good what everyone is developing right now. And, it's definitely, from my opinion, the future as we move into it. But it's one that doesn't exist in this moment of time. But yeah, I guess going back to sort of the marketing, of P2E games, blockchain games, and so on, it is very difficult now. And how we're kind of approaching it is, again, looking at these various different channels to try and get into the mobile scene. There's a lot of stores out there that aren't tied to device manufacturers, for example, but still have hundreds of millions of users on a monthly basis that are using them. And we're trying to I guess bridge the gap for this side of the industry to try and reach these users and actually get onto mobile devices rather than being stuck on browser platforms at the moment. But yeah, P2E, I think it's something that we all should be looking at, definitely, especially if we want to be future proofing ourselves and our businesses as we kind of move forwards. But I wouldn't personally put everything into it right now. It's a very volatile sort of part of the market, and I think it's a space that still needs a little bit more time to mature before people can really build, I think, sustainable businesses upon this technology, rather than right now kind of building just hype businesses that I think quite a lot of VCs might get burnt with as time goes on. But we'll see. You'll see. But hopefully I'll be wrong. I'd love everyone to be successful and for it to be a huge portion of the market. But I guess time will tell.
Yeah, true. Like I totally agree. To be honest, there are some people who agree or disagree with this thing, who really believe or doubt in this thing. I'm kind of like in the middle, more like doubting. Like maybe it should be, a little bit. It's not yet, complete. It's not yet something that we understand fully, and people are just jumping in it because like, oh, it's a hot topic. Let's just do it, and they're kind of. Railing away from the things that they know or that they are good at, and instead of improving this thing that they have and still doing and just looking at that topic of NFTs or blockchain games or P2E games, it's I think something to pay attention to, but a little bit be aware of it. To be honest,
don't put your eggs all in one basket. That's my sort of advice. And work for today, and I guess build for tomorrow instead.
Yeah, exactly. You can prepare. Like I know there's some type of P2E games that you can still don't implement the blockchain on NFT, but you can do in some different ways and kind of go around it. And I think this could be maybe the beginning of this thing, and then if it works and the industry develops, then maybe focusing on NFTs and blockchain games could be a choice. Yeah. Okay, next question. Quite simple but quite vast. How to reach your target audience in 2022? Question to Roman.
I'll try to give like a super practical advice on the. I'd advise to use scheduled network, believe it or not, for one reason. With the iOS 15 update of Sched Network, the data that you get directly from Apple contains some of the data that Ad Network has never shared, or shared, but not in a big extent. To be precise, this is bundle IDs of the apps where you were advertising. And you can see from which specific apps you're getting the best performance. I don't see now that a lot of people are utilizing this or benefiting from this, or even half a year ago, I had a presentation and no one knew about it, even though it's in Apple's documentation. This is a part of something that people can start already using. And that's it. So you see where your app is advertised. You can just double down on it, talk to your ad network, use this information to your advantage, crunch the data. That doesn't really require like big teams. This is not enterprise level stuff. This is like indie level stuff already. So the data in this regard is actually got democratized.
Yeah, good point. I think like when this feature came up, like everybody just like, oh no, I'm too scared. I'm going to Android, or they jump there and like instead of pay attention to this. And I can see right now, it's more like level up. Before it was more everybody is doing on Google Play, Android, and right now you can see it's like everybody's getting back on the iOS as well and starting to understand this thing. So something to pay attention to. Very good. Okay, next question. Which market is worth paying attention to? Well, install grow is still very big and is going up. I see the biggest, some biggest right around the world. Where we should, which market we should pay attention to? CK.
Yeah, sure. So we actually advertise worldwide, so we have a lot of experience with this. I think a lot of the geos that people talk about, so like Brazil is really strong. Southeast Asia, there's a huge audience there and growing. I would say one that not a lot of people talk about is actually Middle East. Actually for us with Snake, Saudi Arabia is our #2 geo in terms of revenue. So even larger than UK, CAU, Germany, and France and such. And so I'd say Middle East is one that not a lot of people talk about. In sort of looking at markets worldwide, like localization is really important. Middle East Arabic is probably one of the hardest to localize. It's the only language where in the computer it's right to left. And the language itself, I don't know Arabic, but our understanding is it's descriptive. Like if the word that you're trying to say does not exist in the language, it becomes like a very, very long descriptive word. So like, let's say if so for us, like let's say the word snake did not exist, it would be like an animal that moves like and that's very long, right? And so then your description, your localized text is very, very long. As opposed to with something like Japanese, like if it's a foreign word, there's katakana and they say like suneku or something like that, and it's much shorter. And so localization is quite a bit more work in Arabic that we've seen, but when done well, we've seen that it's very, very powerful. So let's say Southeast Asia, LATAM, and then I'd say Middle East.
Yeah, I see. I think LATAM has the biggest install growth. So, and in Brazil market, it's starting to boom and more spending, as you say. And of course, MENA region, from our experience too, the spending there is it's crazy, especially for some IO, more multiplayer games, right? They're very welcome in this area. But localization it's a big problem. I mean, it's not just language localization. You need to have some graphics localizations, content localization, right? So it's quite a lot of things to do. CK, can you share some of the insights about that? Like, is it really that much work? And maybe some tips to developers that they may find like this game type they might be welcome there, but like how to start with.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, and we localize in I think 15 different languages, and every single sort of additional effort we do in terms of localizing the content and the quests and all of that as well, we see small incremental gains. And I'd say I think somebody brought this up, either Adam or Thomas, but with TikTok, we work with them on the creator marketplace. And in there, we're able to meet a lot of local influencers in different markets and really learn from them. I've never been to Brazil or Middle East, and I don't speak the language, and so it's quite hard for anybody. Actually, on our team has never been there, so quite hard to understand that market. But we're able to do that still globally, understand a lot of different markets by working with influencers on TikTok, and so they have this creator marketplace where you can search for different influencers, and so as you work with them, they'll teach you all the local preferences, and we're seeing a lot of success with that and learning from these influencers.
Oh, that's very interesting because, one might think that actually you need to have some person, from this region, understanding the region in your company working for you, you mean, to be able to go there. But actually your, tip is pretty good because you don't need to start with the huge budget, I guess, where you can have a collaboration like that. Yeah, I can see also, like in our accelerator program, we have some of the cooperating partners we have that they can help them doing the localization, and publishing as well. So they can deal with these things, and you don't have to spend that much money or things on it. But if they're happy with that, they can just help you with all the things, and help you manage it, and you can manage. Except that region, the MENA region, you can manage worldwide beside this thing and still doing your thing, and they're doing their thing.
And they can also tell you what's trending now in those regions, and that's something that's very, very hard to capture, even if you worked with like localization companies or localization agencies and such. And so we've seen that it's invaluable.
All right, thanks. We got one question from the audience. Why do publishers test games in US? Why is it considered main market where they don't have the highest number of mobile users? China and India have way more. Okay. Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend testing in China. I mean, China as a market is extremely difficult just to get your game live, let alone run testing that's going to be meaningful, I think, for the rest of the globe. I mean, testing in the US, I think it's if you can get it working in the US, it's going to probably and most of the time work the rest of the globe anyway. So it's kind of a core market for the industry in general, in terms of the revenue generation opportunities, and being able to see if you can make a game profitable, get the right CPIs, etc. Within a market that is highly developed. So testing there first is definitely, I think, the best way to get a quick result to see if a game is going to work for the rest of the world, rather than going, for example, in India, for example, where you're going to get a lot lower CPIs, but being successful in India doesn't mean that you're going to have a game that's scalable, within the US, within Western Europe, and the rest of the world outside of that as well. So, yeah, I just wouldn't recommend China. So definitely don't try to test in China. It's going to be impossible, if not near enough impossible to do.
Well, true that. Well, I stayed in China for like, how do you say, Thomas?
Sorry. Yeah, just go ahead. Tell your China story, Krystian.
No. You go first.
I just wanted to add on the question. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you can afford testing in US, because also there the harsh reality is it is probably the most advanced mobile market, which also means that you have to pay the highest prices if you want to acquire users through. It doesn't matter which ad network there. So therefore, if you can afford it, I mean, amazing. Kind of maybe another tip for soft launching games and especially also testing games could be that you look at markets like the Philippines or also like Canada, to check out. I mean, it will be hard, like to get really the unit economics, not really matchable with United States, for example. But especially if you look at your game KPIs and want to find out what is the retention and so on, then it's also kind of a good approach to go for markets like this, because there it will be easier to acquire even more users with the same budget. And then you have kind of more data points to really analyze the performance of your games as well. So maybe adding this on the list, to which countries you should go first to test your games, so to say.
I completely agree. I actually, when you said about testing in the US, I would avoid that at all costs. I would like Thomas said, Canada is one of the best test beds for soft launching an app.
Yeah, true. I mean, avoid all the costs. I mean, the costs of testing US, right?
100%.
Yes, totally agree. I mean, when it comes to China, first, I stayed in China for over 13 years, and I know how difficult to understand everything there. I mean, not only the market, the mobile market is, it's like a different planet, let's say, when it comes to that, and their rules and everything, and the specification of it, it's something way different. So I mean, testing in China, you either must be crazy or we have really good partners there. We have some partners there. We if they're interested in your game and they see your game, they can help you test. But going there, I think with publisher or a partner, that's the only way you can do it. I don't think you can even do the CK of tip of like going with the influencers. I don't think they have different even platforms to communicate. I don't think if you'll be able to communicate, and then there's a language barrier or a culture barrier, and understanding the market. So
and also with the US, it's not only the cost of running the advertising for the testing. You also risk damaging your reputation, as an app. If there are things wrong, it's a soft launch after all. If your economy is completely off and you have to put it back on track, you will have communities build up around your app, and they will spread the fact that before it was, it was this much to make a purchase, and afterwards it's this much to make a purchase, and there'll be huge uproar about it. So they're all things to sort of bear in mind when you are soft launching.
I guess to some extent it kind of what are you meaning by test as well? I mean, if you're soft launching a game and you're really trying to test, the game economy, get game KPIs to see retention, session times, etc., then yeah, definitely, why would you go through the expense of the US? And as you said, Adam, risk potential, how people see your game, and will they ever come back to the game when you get to a hard launch point? But if you're testing, the actual CPIs, and especially for hyper casual, you want to start looking at if this is a scalable game, and you already know that you've got a game that at the core of it is good, basically in terms of KPIs. Then that's why we see a lot of publishers, developers testing in the US, because why not make sure it works in the biggest market in terms of revenue, and the highest paid market, because it should theoretically anyway only get simpler from there once you've kind of cracked the US in that sense. But it isn't all about number of users or anything like that. There's a lot more that goes with it to really determine I guess what's a mature market, what's growing, and where you should be testing your games. And I think you need to look at what stage you are in development, what it is you're trying to find out, and what it is you're trying to achieve from the test before you really decide what markets you want to be going for at that stage.
Yeah. And then actually adding one more point that I think wasn't brought up earlier is we actually like testing in the US, because even though CPIs are higher, your LTV on your ad side is also higher. So that sort of equation is actually not necessarily worse than, let's say, India. India, lower CPI, but your LTV on your ads is also lower. And so, like it just really depends on your game. And then also with in-app purchase, like you could never test in India for that. Like there's just not, your in-app purchase conversion rate would be like almost zero. And I would say if you tested like any in-app purchase game there, you probably would think that your game is not any good. So and even Canada, I'd say like the market's probably a lot smaller in terms of like in-app purchase total spend, that if you wanted to get any statistical significance, you probably had to like bid higher, because like with marketing, if you want 100 users, maybe it's like $1, but if you want 1,000 users, then it's actually higher. You have to bid higher to get a larger volume. And so that sort of increase in your CPI is actually probably higher in Canada than it is in US, because 100 users, 1,000 users, it's still small in the US, whereas like 1,000 payers in Canada is like probably like a lot of people, because your payer to conversion, payer to free user sort of ratios maybe 100 to 1, right? So yeah, so like those are things to keep track of and note down. But yeah, but for us, we actually like testing in the US for those reasons.
Yeah, I can see there's so many different strategies. Of course, there's no one way to success, right? There's so many different ways. So I understand, like some people say, yeah, yes, do test in the US. These other ones say, no, don't test in the US. And I kind of agree on that. Like even they mentioned India. I mean, like I don't think it's a good market, or very hard market to monetize, as there is no in-app purchases almost, right? And even ads monetization, it's sometimes not that good. I remember I have a developer that he was from India and actually complaining about monetization in India, and then he saw his uncle playing his game without the 3G or the Wi-Fi. It's like, what are you doing? You didn't even let me to earn some money. So even in his own family, just like stuff like that. So. But India, I think for some games, I mean, like we tried India as a testing just a game, not monetization at all, like just some stats of the game. And for example, hyper casual, like games that have, a smaller package, let's say, that could be tested there. Like just check, like, okay, if some things works, right? So you don't think about monetization at all. Like it could be actually tested there. There's a huge population. The CPI is very low, right? So you can, for like a low budget, you can get some users, understand what is your game, or if you can make it. If you have reference to the US, that'd be better, right? So you later you kind of know, like, okay, I need to reach this kind of level, and then maybe we can test on the US or Canada or any countries that is actually a good reference for a scalable, later in the future. Okay, so when we're talking about the different markets, like I know, like the research is very important to make, right? Like how we can make the research for a market, how we can decide like which market to go. Like right now there's so many different strategies, so maybe we can get some tips to developers, like how we can start with that. Roman?
Yeah, so I just want to add to the previous question that there is, based on the conversations, there is a huge distinction between what hyper-casual or hybrid or whatever you call it and everyone else is doing. So I'm sure, like, CK, do you even call this test case a soft launch when you launch a new game?
Yeah. I'm not sure we call it soft launch. I mean, we do soft launch just to make sure the game has no bugs. But very quickly after that, like if we want a soft launch monetization, we release it in the US and worldwide, and we gotta see if it works and all of that. So and then actually some ads, when you integrate some of the ad networks, if you're not live in the US, they don't let you show ads because like their system, when you say create app, and then you say, hey, create. Oh, wait, it's not in the US. They cannot find it. So you can't even create the app for some ad networks. And so, so again, like, I don't know if like like what Roman's saying, I think is very correct. I don't know if soft launch is even the right word anymore. But assuming you're sort of done testing your game with no bugs, no crashes, and it's like, okay, it's working properly, then we for hyper casual studios and hybrid casual studios, we launch in the US very, very quickly. And so that's what I mean by when we're really testing in the US on UA monetization.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that there is a huge difference between what the game developers did or do traditionally in other genres and what hypermarket is doing. And this is where this is where I want to discover the term research. So for me, the good research is not me going through Google or App Store and looking for all like competitors, right? Or like the ideas. For me, it's actually reversing the traditional order. I won't create a game first or think about creating a game first. I will create a concept. I don't know, where the main hero is a ball and it's jumping through hoops, whatever. And then I'll do this creative, and like traditionally that would be Facebook now. Kind of, I don't know if people still using Facebook for this sort of like tests. And this is my research. This is how I know if this is gonna work or not. And CK will tell us what ad network to choose for the test. I think he said.
Yeah. For that, it used to be Facebook, but not anymore as much. Facebook for concept testing. I'd say TikTok is where we're doing a lot of testing. So
yeah. So that's a good insight. So there's just create something that you can pull out the data and decide if you can move on with this or not, or you can destroy it and start from scratch. That's my thing.
Okay, we mentioned something like soft launches, right? So Yeah, of course, there is no specific definition to soft launch, like how your game is ready for a soft launch, right? Like I think this is a pretty vague thing, right? But okay, let's say like you want to soft launch on one market, and specific market geo, right? What we should pay attention to, Thomas?
Yeah, so I think it is kind of important when you test something, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you test, that you need a significant amount of testing points to kind of value what you're testing. So in other words, if you say, okay, I'm going to test this new game concept that I've been working on, and only, I don't know, 10 people saw it, and you say then, hey, it's super awesome, everybody likes it, would be a wrong conclusion to draw. But also on the other hand side, if 10 people see it and nobody kind of downloads the game or whatever, and you go to, okay, it's a complete fail, it's also the wrong assumption. So therefore, I think when you test something, and especially also when we talk about soft launches, it is important that you really try to push to a significant level. In other words, what that means is, kind of maybe as some kind of rule of thumb that we are telling our clients is that you should think of at least $5,000 of budget to really invest in the initial test of your concept. Because once you get there, I mean, if you figure out when you spend 1,000 and you really see, okay, nothing, really nobody cares. I mean, you can obviously stop and say, okay, let's move on and test the next concept. But that is, I would say, as mentioned, some kind of rule of thumb to give you a little bit of direction of what you should have in mind. And they are also very important, I think, when you do soft launches, and I think this is also kind of industry proof, I would say. You should not go for I soft launch my game now in worldwide, because this also means that you will be distributing your game into different cultures, into different countries, into different user behavior, and then it will be once again super hard to somehow bring all the dots together and try to analyze what is going on here. So therefore, it is important that you kind of focus on soft launching in one country maybe, or maybe two countries, because then you really have one specific market where you can then also easier draw conclusions out of it, because your data set is kind of not all over the place in kind of a way.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, my question is like how you can drive conclusion which market to target. Like I think this is quite an interesting thing. Okay, let's say like we don't want to test in the US, so where should I test? Where should I start? Michael?
Yeah,
should I ask somebody else?
No, it's a tough question. I mean, for us, when we're looking, I mean, we're probably, it depends highly on the game. I mean, hyper casual in general definitely, works. It's meant to be a global appeal type game. That's kind of what hyper casual is. It should appeal to everybody. So I think the decision for what market you kind of, I guess, would soft launch or test in is not irrelevant, but not as tough as if you're looking at a much sort of more in-app purchase based game, more mid-core game, where for me it then kind of depends, I think, a lot on the type of game it is. Like, is it a really casual game? Is it something a lot more I guess action based, for example? All of these are areas that I would be thinking about when I'm thinking what market should we be going to. And I think as well what your end goal is. Is the end goal to be able to scale in the US? And if so, well, what markets, lower sort of level markets, I guess, would somewhat emulate the audience within the US? Or is are we looking to have a game that target its much better sort of the MENA region, for example, where there is games out there, usually much more sort of action based titles that do really, really well in the MENA region. And a lot of games as well focus specifically within that region, and aren't actually available within Europe and within the US and so on. So yeah, it's probably not the best answer in the world in terms of you should market here, but it is really there's so many variables and there's so much to think about. And really, I would kind of start off, what is your end goal? What is your success? What is it that you class as successful as well when you're, launching your game? Because the success for everybody is different. Some people want global dominance, and others, really just want to have a really good game within their local market, and that is success to them. So really, I think about what it is you're trying to achieve. And then second to that, think about the game that is that you're developing, because you should be looking at sort of how the local markets, I guess, run, what's already working within them local markets, to see if it's worth actually testing your game within it.
Yeah, I think making research is quite a difficult thing to do. I mean, you're never sure, right? But I think you can use different platforms that we can see from our accelerator program. And we use our data. We're using some of the platform data for that have mobile games, market analysis and these tools. There's so many, of course, different reports that even some of you or your companies are doing, that you can have an insight on that. And also you can join with the data with some of the competitors' data, right? See where they're popular, why they're, and so on. I think like joining all this information together, you can actually make some assumptions. Like you'll never be sure, right? Like, should I go there or there? But maybe you can make assumptions from all this information gathered together, and it's like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all saying that maybe this market could be well, or this market would be well. Let's just try. And then I think it's just a way of trying. Like, you'll never be sure, so you need to invest in a little bit of UA or doing a little bit like a soft launch there, right? And just see how is the data, how is it working, and so on. Check the other one, see how is it working, and it's something that fits you, right? When it comes to the marketing, if there are any best non-paid marketing tactics that we can have, in your opinion, Adam?
I've said it before. I'll say it again. Influencers, like it was funny on the podcast. We had some of the team from Paradigm on who make Solar Smash, and it was an amazing episode because they'd actually grown their community first. And they had 60 million tools, all with no user acquisition whatsoever. It was purely through the community and influencers who were advertising their app by actually creating good content that people wanted to watch, and it just grew exponentially. It was quite phenomenal. So that for me is one of the biggest, somewhat untapped sources of growth.
Yeah, true. I see also like different communities in different social media and platforms, and like having be joined in a community can get you some organic downloads, and get that thing started, right?
Some of that obviously depends on the type of game that you're making, and how much you can how in depth it is in order to build a community around it. But it's a very, very strong way of doing things.
Yes. And very similar question. So what are the best paid marketing tactics for a developer, but on a budget? Roman?
Yeah, another one free. I mean, it's cross promo. Like you can still use IDFV, so meaning that you can still do deterministic attribution. You can still evaluate and assess the performance of the channel. Especially in the hyper-casual space, probably publishers, developers have tons of apps. And also, it's great from the perspective of data points. You can get, like for me, I look at it more like how much data can I get from this, other than how much money can I get from this. And with this data, then I can get money. And as for developers on budget, I don't know, it's usually like, the same ad networks. So I can't really advise anything on this. Maybe one sense from my side is a tooling. So for example, people are doing a lot of amazing stuff on Google spreadsheet. So you don't need to even pay for advanced tooling. For example, LTV prediction. I've seen models made on the Google spreadsheet that works like well. They're not perfect, of course, but this is already can be a great investment into the business.
Oh, actually, we have a question from the audience that is very something that you mentioned. What are some cross promo tools that is gaining traction post IDFA? Anybody can answer. Roman, you want to continue, or somebody else?
I just wanted to say I don't know what is a cross promo tool is. Maybe I can say Tenjin. But from what I've seen, it's people are doing a lot of things internally, and this is a big topic. Like, when do I show this new ad? How do I prioritize it in the waterfall of the monetization? So it's a big topic, but I don't know if there is like even a tool that is doing that specifically, only that.
Yeah, I think like a lot of mediation, monetization tools, they have stuff like that. We have also like the cross promotion, of course, thing, and feature for that. And I think most of them do have, right? So
yeah, I would say Iron Source has a pretty good one. Cross promo, you can like on your campaigns just check like allow cross promo, and then they take a much smaller cut, and then you can see how much traffic and all of that. So they have a pretty good like tool built out, but we use Tenjin, just like what Roman said. Just use Tenjin.
Yeah, that's a great commercial. I mean, Tenjin. Okay. Another question on the budget too. How I can scale up on a budget? Any ideas, Thomas?
Yeah, so I think the idea of scaling actually is that you spend as much money as you somehow can. So I think that is kind of the stage where you want to go. So I think that is also probably a little bit changing the mindset in some kind of way. Yeah. I think the tricky part is how to get there. Yeah. So how do you really come up with a game concept where okay, it is appealing to a specific target audience? You somehow figured out on which channels you can promote your game to exactly reach this perfect target audience for a game. And then what I have seen in most of the cases, once you figured those two things out, then the next question is, okay, it is working now very well. Which other channels can I use? And then, it is becoming a little bit messy in some kind of a way, because then you don't have your perfect fitting channel anymore. You have to go a little bit off-road, and there you will probably not reach the same kind of CPIs, or also not even the ROAS or the LTV that you're getting back from those users. So I think there it will be a little bit tougher. But I would say in the beginning, really try to find this one channel that you can try to max out as good as possible, especially when you're on a budget, because then you cannot afford testing multiple channels at the same time. So therefore, try to find the one that is working. And once you're there, and once this is going, as mentioned, the question will switch in your head, and you will be, okay, how can I do more of that? I want to spend more money, because you will generate more money at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think scaling up and budget, it's a very opposite, let's say, concepts. So that's very hard to say, but
yeah, no, if I could jump in as well, I guess some sort of ideas. But for us, obviously, with GameBake, we're very much focused on outside of iOS and Google Play. And one, I think it's not free all the time anyway, but one definite area is looking at alternative channels for Android stores, which have hundreds of millions of users, lacking a lot of competition, because the content there just doesn't really exist, not to the same level of scale. And it's a great opportunity to get your game live. And you could use it as a test base. You could use it as a way to try and scale your game for free or a very low cost on these channels as well. The issue is that the tools, the ecosystem doesn't kind of exist in the same way as it does around Google Play and iOS. But that's something that is changing and will get better over time. But I think considering these different channels, these different platforms, is definitely a really good way to try and, I guess, scale your game, but from a different perspective and angle. For example, if you've got the ability to develop your game well in HTML5, for example, utilizing Play Canvas, then there's a good opportunity if you've got a good game. Of course, it all starts there. But to launch your game on mobile, desktop, web, actually publish into these channels, distribute your game for free across the web. It's not easy. It's not a guaranteed way, but it's a lot easier to rack up daily active users in the hundreds of thousands on web. And once you've built that user base there, you can start to look and see how you can actually, I guess you could call it cross promo, but actually start to push your users from mobile web, for example, where you can determine if they're on iOS or they're on Google, an Android device, and actually then run advertise into your web traffic that you've got to push them into downloading your game on the App Store or downloading a new game that you've launched on the App Store. So there's definitely a lot of different areas where you can. Free is probably not the right word. Nothing's ever free, but there is definitely a lot of different ways that if you start to think outside of the box, look at actually the wider market that exists. There's a lot of different avenues and options for developers to take. Just need to, I guess, get down to it and give it a try and see what works best for your game and for you.
Yeah, true that. I can see from my experience that if you find cheaper region geo and you can scale up there and test it there and scale up there, and once you get it, go to the other ones, that could be another strategy for it. Yeah, there's many different strategies and possibilities to kind of be on a budget. I mean, you still need some money, like depending what do you say about what do you mean by budget, right? How much is the on budget, right? So that's a big question, I guess. Another question, when we're talking about the UA, how about the ad creatives? Is there any trend that we should pay attention to in 2022? CK, maybe you can jump in. You probably run a lot of.
Yeah, we run. I don't have a really good answer because we run a lot of creative tests. We run like 5 per week just on one game, Snake, and so we test a ton of creatives. But unfortunately, over the past like year and a half, we haven't found anything better than what we had like a year and a half. So so our main creative that's getting traction is still like the same creative. The entire time. So, but I'll answer sort of the previous question on how do you scale on budget. The best way is actually just to make sure your math is correct. Like, and by math I mean your return on ad spend, your ROAS. And so if you have that that math worked out really well, you can then scale and make sure that your payback cycle is 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and then you'll be able to refunnel that money back into UA and make sure that your ROI positive, right? So the best way to scale on budget is to make sure you're ROI positive, and so you want to have really strong sort of like day one ROAS targets, and if you need a longer payback cycle, then you can sort of scale up slower. So like maybe increase, $10 a day. But if you can afford a shorter payback cycle, then you can scale up more, like so maybe adding like $200 a day, right? So at the end of the day, it's making sure that your return on ad spend is really strong, and that meets your sort of cash flow side and how much you have in the bank. But on the creative side, we test a ton, but we rarely find any good ones. So I don't think I have a very good answer there.
All right. From my experience, when it comes to ad creatives, I mean, post IDFA times, the ad creatives, we're trying to make ad creatives that actually target specific users, right? Or be appealing to specific users. So instead of, targeting these things or you can target, right? So you're just having like ad creatives that, be appealing for this type of users, for women or for males, or like this for people who are specific interests, right, in cars or something. And adding these elements to ad creatives actually could have kind of like a targeted campaign that okay, if people like it, or people that they are maybe these are my people who like cars or who like this, right? And kind of growing the ad creatives and creating ad creatives around that idea, around that targeting. And of course, I mean, like ad creatives, you need to have at least couple ones, and you need to have different strategies when it comes to that, and understanding more or less what could work, and just testing it out, and then see if it's something that makes sense, right? Okay, next question. What steps in marketing should you avoid that is actually time consuming, or actually doesn't bring too much to overall performance to marketing, but people still things like, oh yeah, I should do it, everybody does it, and so on? How about Thomas?
Yeah, happy to jump this one. Because at Appsflyer we're also working together with apps as well, and so therefore I have this kind of two-sided side on this question. And I think one of the topics that really only pays off once you have a really big established brand is the topic of organic social media marketing. So really thinking of building up your Facebook page and building up some kind of building up organic content around this topic where you want to build up a community and all the things. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, these are amazing tactics and they can also pull off and they are really great. But really in the beginning, I think it's probably one of the worst channels that you could think of, because they need so much time. You need so much time to build up this community. You need so much time to come up with content ideas. And at the end of the day, you will have, I don't know, let it be 100 followers on your Facebook page. And out of, given the algorithms, maybe 3 of those 100 followers will see the content that you're posting there. So therefore, this is really, especially in the beginning, I think one of the worst channels that you could think of.
Yeah, totally agree. Like, don't think too much about it. I mean, it's like a long-term goal or like plan, I think. Then yes, but at the beginning, I don't think it's a good way. Okay, guys, I think we should wrap up. Like, I totally forgot to check on the time. We're a little bit above. Past the time. So, thank you everybody for coming and actually participating in the discussion. It was not only quite some fun, but I think it was pretty educational and informative. So. Again, thank you all for coming, and I think that's it, right? You can still find us. I mean, people can find us on Pine, right, or LinkedIn if they have further questions. So I think everybody will be on board with that. So feel free to contact us, right?
Awesome. Yeah, cool. Definitely.
Great. So thank you all for coming, and I think that's it.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.